Hello, 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 you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Be Victorious. Hello, you guys. You know who I am. It's me, Dr. VicTORIEus, the one that create victories and those who are interested in knowing more about adverse childhood experiences, known as ACEs. Adverse childhood experiences are those experiences that happen during our childhood that have a huge effect on us. And so I am here with a young lady that I am absolutely honored to have. We actually met, found out that we have so much commonality. It's amazing to me. I love being in spaces where I can meet people that we have the same commonality. Not only is she an educator and has been in education, she is a therapist. She's a social worker. She has her own podcast too. Now, I will share, I was episode 78 on emotionally unavailable podcast, and it was a pleasure. And I felt like we needed to have this conversation again. And I promise you, our community is going to love Malisa. Malisa, where are you?
Hello.
My girl, what's
I'm
up?
so glad to be here.
I'm happy. You know why? Because we have done this. The
Yeah.
fact that we have had this conversation and we are continuing, all I ask for people to do is have a conversation about access. So
Mhm.
I have to personally thank you, number one, for having me on your podcast because that's exactly what I did. I had to talk about adverse childhood experiences.
It was such a pleasure. I was so excited to meet you. I'm so excited we get to continue this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Now, for the people that haven't heard, emotionally unavailable is a podcast. Tell us more about your podcast.
Man, it's in a phase where it's a little bit hard to describe because I started it with that name because well, I'm hilarious, so I had to give it a funny name. But the truth is I was really emotionally unavailable and it was a journey that I was going through. And the first probably 45 episodes is me still kind of going through the fire and figuring myself out and addressing the dissatisfaction in my life. And then I don't know, I found peace and I'm in a really, really, really good place. But I mean, the work never ends, right?
Right.
So it's really shifted probably because of the like amazing people like you that have been like attracted to come and sit down and have like wonderful conversations with me. So
Yeah.
now it really is I'm speaking to people about passion, I think. If I were to like really, narrow it down. And of course, so my gifts are in my story. So it's about me because this is my world a little bit. But like anyone I can connect with, that's what I'm doing. I find that so much of my life was spent without connection, and
Mhm.
now I'm getting so much connection. It just makes my heart so happy. So, I mean, it's still anything I'm struggling with or the guest is struggling with, but it's mostly like, what are you passionate about? It's a lot of the same kind of conversation you and I had. It's a
Right.
good listen. It will change your life.
It will. Now, I have a question for you. When
Mhm.
we talked, we knew about ACEs. We talked about ACEs. Did our conversation change your thoughts or perceptions about ACEs, or are you interested in more, learning more?
Yeah, no, I don't think that it necessarily changed anything just because I mean, I've worked in education and it's been posed to me in that package.
Mhm.
And as a person who was really committed to trauma informed education, I
Mhm.
really dug into that. So I can't say it really changed anything.
Mhm.
I've always been looking for more opportunities to have this conversation.
Right.
I just feel so excited to finally be tapped into the network that's just as passionate, if not more, than I am about it. So, ready for more, but not necessarily a change, just because I felt like I had a really good understanding of it.
Right. And see, it's hard to find people that have a really good understanding of it because there are people out there that don't know about ACEs at all.
A
I
lot
think
of people.
there is, and it's crazy because I feel like even when we were doing professional development, it was like, welcome to ACEs. And it's like, okay, take the quiz.
Right.
Okay.
Y'all heard about ACEs? We're gonna go ahead and hand this out at this PD real quick. Just go ahead and fill it out, please.
And have a
I
great day.
I told you on my podcast that I was like, whoa, I feel really yucky. I wasn't even prepared that these questions were going to be on this paper right now. Like, oh, and so that was my first experience with hearing the term ACEs. But it's crazy because somebody that like I'm working with for marketing my stuff was looking at kind of how my Instagram looks aesthetically. And so I've got, she was the one who suggested the cover for the, whatever.
I,
And then she was like, she asked what ACEs were, which is great. It's a great conversation. But I'm like, I thought everyone knew this. Like, I didn't know that, like, oh, I feel lucky that I worked in education and I mean, I think the whole point was, or at least my perception of it, it was a really good, succinct way of categorizing, which is like the way our brains work, and organizing this material to something digestible so that we could start to try to understand what the people we serve are going through. I
right.
think my problem was when I was an educator was like, hi, excuse me, I have the highest score you can get on this. So do I matter in this environment? Does my trauma matter? Because you did not take care of me when you handed me this piece of paper with no trigger warning. Okay. So where are we? What are we doing here?
And you know what? I will tell you, right after we had your podcast, I've had like 3 different trainings. And because of your podcast, I've actually stopped engaging. Not that I don't like the ACE quiz, I like it. I do. But for people that are not aware of it, it can be offensive. It can
Yeah.
be triggering because it's like, wait, whoa. Because growing up, these were the things that you keep in your
We
house.
don't talk about. That's
Not at
exactly
all.
right. I mean, it's the same as whenever you're trying to just study something and you hand out a research question. There's a lot of people who going to answer that as a lie because they don't know who's going to get the information. I mean, the type of shame that was instilled in me as a child
Mhm.
made me paranoid of anybody ever knowing anything about me.
Right.
I know now that's not unique. That's every one of us because anyone raised in a certain generation was raised by somebody who said appearances are the only thing that matter.
Uh-huh.
But it's scary to let that stuff out. Now, for me, it's not. I've built my whole brand, my whole life on sharing my story. I'm not afraid to say what I've gone through. I just didn't know. I had there was no preparation, and at that time, I was real new into my trauma understanding. Really new. I knew nothing really. I
Right.
was just digging in. So I didn't. You could give me a trigger warning either, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is gonna be sensitive, okay. But like, I had a friend who told me after I shared something really hard on my podcast, I sent just a clip of that. I did give like a warning
Right.
and whatever, and he was like, yo, you gotta be a little more responsible with your trigger warnings because I assumed he was at my level of healing and he
Right.
wasn't.
No.
He didn't understand what is being triggered, what happens when you're triggered, or how to deal with the trigger. So now every time I start out a presentation, I don't assume anything about my audience. I'm like,
Right.
hey, let's get you a grounding object in your hand, whatever. But this is the type of stuff that people don't understand when we talk about trauma informed. I felt very trauma informed
Mhm.
and there's so much just in the last 4 months. Now that my nervous system's regulated, I now see how sensitive I am to every ounce of stimuli in my environment. I can feel things enter my body now, whereas before I was in a constant state of hyperarousal, running from the bear. We don't deal with feelings when we're running from the bear, you know?
And do you think that has a lot to do with your CPTSD?
Oh, it has everything to do with my CPTSD. Yeah, because listen, I've always been on more of like a self-healing journey. I, like a lot of people I know, didn't have a trust in the mental health community.
Right.
And of course some stigma because my mental health got so bad that there was a lot of ideation and stuff. There's just no one feels safe sharing that stuff, right? So I mean, there's no one to blame but me for not seeking like the help I needed or whatever. But I don't even want to use the word blame.
Right.
Nobody did me wrong for me to feel that distrust, but
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of see kind of what traditional therapy was looking like, and I was like, you can't help me, man. I know everything. I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to make a feeling happen and understand. So yeah, my CPTSD, man, I really just knew very, very little. I knew about the nervous system.
Right.
And it was an important piece. It was. But I did not know that until I dealt with all of that underlying emotion that
Mm-hmm.
fueled all of that and these thoughts, all that together was driving me insane. I was driving myself insane, and it was getting worse every year I got older.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I hit the brick wall. I had to make a decision, and I did. And I was like, okay, we gotta, we're gonna have to learn more than just this one piece. I guess that was not really working for us. Let's go ahead on and figure the rest out.
Right. And see, this is the reason why I want our community to grow, because Kelly would be perfect for you. Kelly Erickson, she is something. Oh my God, when I tell you she's good, she actually has an opening right now. I want our community to come together because there are resources in our community. Therapy is not for everybody. Do I recommend it? I just know that there's other things out there because
Right.
healthcare is the best care. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have money to take care of us no more, you guys. Mental health is at an all-time high, which is the reason why I think they put the information finally on the CDC for people to be aware of. So
Yeah.
let's be clear, the ACEs study been out there since 1995, produced in 1998, and they put it out there, and it's set on the CDC's website and still sitting on there, but the updates are there. So I feel like they gave a pure warning that all of this stuff was going to be out here. Let's
Yeah.
be clear, no shade, but we just had an election and a lot of stuff came out. And all of that stuff, racial discrimination, bullying,
Oh,
mass shooting, all of that is
all
ACE.
of it.
So it's
All
like,
of it. It's,
are
I
we?
mean, I remember the day after that night being like, man, I told myself weeks ago I'm in the surrender and that I don't know how, but everything's going to be fine. So I'm not going to like back down from that.
Mhm.
But boy, this is giving me a real opportunity to test that faith.
Yeah,
You know, like I was like, but this is what I saw though. I visualized me, you, our people that we're like, you know, right here, we're all a little disconnected, but we're all here and we're mobilizing.
yep,
And you know what? I'm not even worried about it, honestly, because I'm like, no, you have silenced us for the last time. We're
yep.
done now. We're done. And the women, especially, I'm so sorry, men, but the women I'm seeing being like, and I'm done. And I'm
I'm
like,
done.
here you are. You
That's
are
it.
done.
We have to do something for
That's
ourselves.
exactly
Like,
right. You got to take that first step. No matter where you are in life, no matter what it is in front of you that you're not sure how you're going to get there, it starts with that first step. And so much of that trauma work really is understanding that, baby, that was just a lie someone told you a long time ago, but we start to it that voice starts to become our voice and we can't tell
yep.
the difference. And I mean, I was going insane. My narratives were getting so loud that they were almost audible, and I have schizophrenia in my family, so I was really scared. Like, is that what this is? Like, this is very
Hmm.
dark. I'd never had anything like this because I just didn't address it and didn't address it, and I was a raging psycho, just triggered by everything. I lived in a constant state of
Mm.
hyperarousal. Constant. I
Really?
I woke up and went to sleep, hyperarousal.
But the good thing is, what I like is the words that you just said. See, you're talking about your generational trauma. You're
Mhm.
talking about schizophrenia and it being in your generation. Some people don't even aren't even aware of that.
That's so
And so I
true.
hate to put it out there, or no, actually, I don't. That's chapter one in my book because addressing generational trauma isn't a black or white thing. It is
Right.
a man or woman thing. I think
Thank
it's
you.
something that
Yes.
we need to do in order to understand and grasp on to getting ourselves together because
You have
there-
to. You have to. Well, you don't understand where it started. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I don't know 4 generations back, but I
Mm-mm.
can tell you with absolute certainty that if I got the treatment I got, they had it 10 times worse.
Yep.
And then they had it 10 times worse. We're all doing our best, right?
Yep.
Like as parents, you have to know, even if you had the worst parent, that in their mind, they weren't intending to be the worst, right? They're trying their hardest to give you better than what they got. And I can hold space for love and compassion for all of that. I can
Mm-hmm.
hold space for some anger or whatever else I need too. But I can understand as a human, that's what I'm here for. I am connecting with people on a human level. I gave a really, I felt impactful panel speech today. And it
Hey.
was just like, we were talking about outcomes for foster kids. I'm a former foster kid.
Oh, wow.
And just it was so data and research. And I know that has a place. I
Mhm.
know that, but that's not what I'm here for, baby. That's not it at all. And
Yep.
I was like, okay, true, but why are we still having a brick wall between us and other humans to really feel like this is an actual us and them issue?
Right.
Like, we've all experienced some form of trauma.
Yep.
And the more you talk about foster kids as if they are in an isolated bubble with experiences that you know nothing about,
Right.
the more I know you haven't dealt with your shit, you know?
Mhm.
I mean,
You're right.
period. Because if you can't see the human in this kid, and no one's talking bad about him, no one's whatever, but they're judged off their outcomes, right? I mean, that's
Right.
what all of this is about. I'm like, but maybe you've never been abandoned, but you probably know what it feels like for a caregiver to say they were going to do something repeatedly and not follow through. So
Right.
you know what betrayal feels like. And I bet you know what it feels like to feel like you are at your core fundamentally unlovable. Because I haven't met a single person yet who has said they've never felt that way or predominantly feel that way until they heal,
You're right.
you know?
But we got to take the steps to do it. I think
Absolutely.
people want to heal, but they don't know how.
They don't know how. I didn't know how.
Well, what do you do? What do you do? So I will share this with you. When we did your podcast, I don't think I was in Kansas City yet. And I went to Kansas City thinking, hey, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be, I'm back at home, I'm doing this. And I promise my inner child knocked on my door like,
Uh-oh.
you got some stuff you need to talk about. And it was different than me coming in, hello, it's Dr. Torie, and I'm in training, and I'm
Yeah,
doing this. I said, it's hard to come home to Kansas City.
it is hard.
That's why I left and went off. Like, let's be clear, because I felt like that was a part of the healing process that
You had to.
closed the door for me to do what I'm doing now. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
who wants to still be dealing with that, healing that inner child that needed to be healed for years? And I once
Absolutely.
people understand that aspect of it,
Mhm.
that's the reason why ACEs awareness to me is key, because if you don't know about it, you should. It can
Abs
help you start your journey. Who wants to be dealing with unresolved childhood trauma forever? And
forever.
out here that do though.
Yeah, I know, and I remember thinking that, like, the healing part was
Hmm.
lifelong,
Hmm.
and it's that when we say that, what we mean is you're going to always occasionally need to utilize the toolbox that we're talking about. When you
Yep.
heal, you gain a really extensive toolbox to deal with the overthinking, to deal with the overstimulation, to deal with the hyper or hypoarousal, just to change
Mhm.
your state. We can teach you how to do that. But you can buy a brand new car and still have to replace the brakes, right? You're
Oh,
still gonna have to air up the tires. You're still gonna have
yep.
to grab your little emotional toolbox and deal with things as they come up. I have a huge betrayal wound.
Mhm.
So it does not take much, even still, to trigger that betrayal. And I understand the difference between I feel betrayed or you betrayed me. No one's out here betraying me. It just
Right.
comes up and I feel the feeling of betrayal. And I'm like, oh, why is that coming up? But like, I have a really happy life. I'm
But
really glad
people
to heal.
but people don't know that part. You know what I mean? So
No.
what do you tell someone that doesn't know how to do that? Because I think that's the problem. I
Hmm.
I had to identify and know my own triggers.
Right.
In Kansas City was a trigger for me. I hate going home. I do, I do, I do, I do. It triggers
Mhm.
so much of what happens when I'm there. And I was having this conversation with somebody else, and it was like, yeah, I feel that because I had to let that person know, like, hey, this ain't how I normally get down when I'm
Yeah.
home, being victorious. I actually had to put some stuff out there, like, this is the reason why this happened. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be this person if it wasn't for this. And so
Mhm.
it's hard when you're in a position where people don't even know that part. So what do you do? I'll ask you as the expert, what do you do when people don't know what to do?
Well, I kind of go through those quick attachment labels: abandonment, rejection, neglect, betrayal, abuse, and do a quick little checklist of kind of what I said about, like, has a caregiver ever promised to anyone, ever had a double life? You found out, a few checklists, whatever. And they're like, they're feeling so seen for the first time in their life, right? And I know that because I remember feeling it, like, wow, thank you, universe. And then I kind of walk them through a couple of times. Like, I figure out which one is their biggest wound,
Right.
and I walk through, like, well, tell me about a time you felt that feeling, because I really teach as much as possible how to anchor into your body and to create safety in your body, because wow, what a gift. I didn't know what they meant when they talked about it. I know now, and wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like, the big ones for me are betrayal and neglect. I understand that my biggest fear is everyone's going to leave me, and I
Mm-hmm.
operate under the assumption that subconsciously that's what everyone around me is feeling. So I kind of just tap into, like, what I know about myself, and I have a trust and belief that the people who find me are dealing with the same stuff that I am, and I just go off intuition. I'm just going to be really honest, and I'm like, okay, so let's really work on this betrayal, because this is the thing. And this is my huge, 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 huge soapbox. We
I
all
got
deal with betrayal every
you.
day,
Mm-hmm.
unless you do this really important thing. Understand that we are walking around loving everyone so hard, the way we are begging to receive love.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that in our mind, even though it's all subconscious, we are creating a social contract full of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If I do this, they're going to give me love back in the way that I need it. And now I'm signing my name in blood, and they're signing their name in blood, and this is a contract. And then when they don't do it, my expectations aren't met. I am now betrayed. And
Wow.
you're the one who's the center of my betrayal. You didn't know about it because I didn't really communicate the expectations or anything. And I wasn't really aware of them either. So I have no idea why I'm over here having a meltdown, but this is why, like, that was real work I had to do to understand. Ain't nobody betraying you, sis. This is just a reflection of how you're feeling about yourself. But once we get through a couple of wounds, because when somebody feels seen, tell me more, right?
Right.
And then it's like, okay, honey, the only reason this is still coming up is you have an inner child in you that was very stunted. Very, I have a good sense of how old people's inner child is. Like, I'm pretty woo woo. So, what ifs, but
I know.
like,
So what do you what do you think about, because we've talked and
yeah,
we've talked, and I know we've talked about a lot. You have a little bit of astrology in you.
yeah, all that, all that.
So what do you think about my inner child?
Ooh, your inner child.
I hate to put you on Front Street like that.
No, 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 no. I'm not young, not real young. You're like, you've graduated high school. Yeah, I'd say no. I think you're like 25, dude.
You're so sweet.
No, I'm serious. I don't feel stunted energy off of you. Like,
Really?
like there are men that I talk to, and I'm like, oh, that is a 6-year-old boy inside you. Like, I can see
Really?
exactly which phase of development you got stuck in. But
Yeah.
it's really kind of based around what your shame is saying to you. Like, if you still have this shame that's saying, I'm responsible for everyone around me. Like, you've worked through so much stuff.
Yeah. And
And,
like
and just
I'm
because
someone
you were triggered, hey, sis, that's still going to happen to us
every
too, like,
time.
every time. And that's why I have things like this, a little
What do you
grounding object. Dude, I keep so much stuff around. I have a massive toolbox in my brain of what I need to do to
right,
stay present, because
right.
man, I mean, it really doesn't, if you get a little bit less sleep than you need,
Mm-hmm.
if you have eaten nothing but crap, those things, it's hard to regulate. And
Yep.
so when you can't regulate, the thoughts start. Once the thoughts start, you're in the trigger. Boom, you're done.
But see, I try to get people to understand, to know what their triggers are. What
Right.
triggers? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Hmm.
want to overstep my boundary. I'm an educator.
No, yes, yeah.
I'm a psychologist because I have no other choice. I'm a researcher. But when
Hmm.
it comes to identifying triggers, it's hard to. It's hard to identify people's triggers when you don't know. I will share this with you. After everything I went through, I said, listen, if I can't trust in God, I can't trust in nobody. Now,
Hmm.
it floats for everybody else's boat. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
for me, in order to challenge myself, that's who I started trusting. And I'll be honest,
yeah,
it worked in my favor. And I only say that because I'm in a different space than I was in when it
yeah.
first happened. I let so many, people, oh, you're an empath, but I'm not going to let people continue to use me. I'm not going to continue to be on one side
Right.
of the relationships. So that healing process and that healing journey has gotten me to that point. However, I also am learning and growing. Healing is a journey. It's not something I healed.
Yeah,
No, because
yeah,
something else is going to happen to where it's going to challenge that trigger, and that trigger is going to come all the way up. So this is what I share with people. I used to have a hard time saying no. Like, oh, I would say, because no was just said to me so much. People
yes.
would say stuff. I would be like, okay, no, 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 no. I will know it all the way, baby. And because the no has helped me heal. Just saying
Hmm.
no
You're not
has.
going to get in trouble, and you're still lovable, and you're still worthy, and you're still valuable, and no one's going to be mad at you.
But people don't know that, Melissa. They
Yeah,
don't. So
yeah.
that's why I have to start with the introduction. But again, I don't want to put the quiz, because the first time I'm always good, because I want people to know that my quiz, ACEs quiz, is like an introduction and different. So people are tired of taking it, like you said. They tired of that same 10 questions they give us every year just to complete PD, to say that we.
Right.
So I got something for the people, especially I'll be back in Chicago this weekend. And I got something for them, because at the end of the day, I agree with you and other people. I listen, I accept that feedback. When I get those surveys and I get that feedback, I don't rely on it too much. But then again, I do, because I've
Yeah.
been in spaces where once we had that conversation, it is a, wow, I ain't
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe they felt like that, but they understood the point of it by the time it
know.
was over. I mean, and
But
you're going to
think
trigger
about
people in this work. There's no doubt about it.
experience.
We are healers, but we are people who are going to bring up sensitive content, and sensitive content triggers memories of bad times.
But there's also a way or a process to do it different too. And I think, like I said, me at first, it was more or less just getting the information out there as a researcher, like this, boom, boom, boom. Now
Yeah.
it's not that much, because everybody knows about it, or at least they say they do. But let's break it down. So, like for abuse, we talk about the basic abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse.
Mhm.
But there's so many different types of abuses we don't talk
So
about.
many. And how do you know, like talking about triggers, how do you know the abuse is a tricky one for me when that's triggered. I do use those labels that I use those for my feeling labels. I use them for my trigger labels because it takes all those thousands of adjectives that we could describe what we're feeling and it puts them in these five categories. It
Right.
works for my brain. So figuring out what was being triggered when it was my abuse wound was tricky because no one's punching me. No one, no one's really yelling, nothing like that. Like I was the screamer around here, no one else. So I started to notice as I've like really healed my body too, just like the nervous system when that's triggered. And man, like a man's voice, I mean, I have a freeze response that is very exclusive to men. So if a man like raises his voice, I will sit down. Like I'm not, and then then but like
It's the
it
same
gets
for
me. It gets me.
me.
It's paralysis. I'm like,
And
oh, like nothing can scare me the way a male voice can scare
And
me.
you know what? I put that in the emotional abuse.
Oh,
category.
any form of abuse. Yeah.
Because I really never paid attention to it until I realized that the male voice in my house, my father used to always yell. I consider myself a dad's girl. But learning, growing, and healing, that yelling, oh my God.
It affected you. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
book signing came in laughing and yelling, and I immediately got triggered. Like, do you not hear these people talking in the middle of the whole conversation? Because again, that's what he's used to, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Post Marine PTSD bad. Don't
Oh
even
God,
use the
yes.
word. But he
Yes.
doesn't want to accept that. He doesn't want to accept that at all. So it's like,
Oh,
I know what you have. You sent your daughter to school to get all this wonderful education, trying to
let
help
me
you.
help you, Dad.
But it's not going to happen only because generational.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what I tell people? When you change, the whole world around you changes. Just the vibrations in my house are so much higher. Like I changed. Granted, I was the center of all the conflict in this house. I will say that. But I mean, I was passing that trauma right on down. Maybe I wasn't doing any of the stuff that was done to me, but I was doing my own stuff.
But
And
ownership and accountability is,
mhm,
thank you for sharing.
absolutely. Oh, I was a psycho mom. I was a psycho spouse. I was causing all kinds of hell around here. But in this space, I see my kids in a totally different way. I had the toughest conversation with my 17-year-old yesterday, but finally he understands that his mother knows things. And there was a time he couldn't come to me because I was in a mental health crisis. And so I
Right.
was like, hey, baby, good luck. But when we were talking yesterday, I was like saying the same stuff that I say to everyone. Like, I know you feel invisible. I
Mhm,
know you
mhm,
feel fundamentally at your core unlovable.
mhm,
You feel like you can't do anything right and that you're alone. You're always going to be alone and
mhm.
then you have nobody in this world to carry that weight on your shoulders with you. I know, and I feel that too. Not anymore, but I know exactly what it feels like. That's the human experience.
Very good.
That's what we're all going through right
And,
there.
and guess what? Your son is going to respect you 10 times over.
I hope. Shoot.
Because remember, we couldn't have conversations with our parents
No, we couldn't.
about our feelings. As soon as we opened up, it was like, sit down or stay grown folks' business.
Girl, it was so and I'm sure I've heard so and so's feelings plenty of times and she ain't said nothing to me. So just you're too sensitive.
you know it.
Too sensitive.
And this is who we are, the cycle breakers, the ones
That's
that's
right.
bringing awareness, the ones that's having a conversation with our kids. I'm heavy on cycle breaking because.
Mhm.
But what I will share is when I always talk to my girls after school. I actually like picking them up instead of
Mhm.
house school. What happened today? He
Yeah.
like, and when my daughter told me about the teacher having a conversation about what happened at the school, I was like, I think they need the book. And she was like, I got it in my book bag. We have to have these conversations.
Mhm.
What's wrong with having this conversation?
Absolutely.
Look, my daughter is 15, she'll be 16 in 2 weeks. And guess what? This happened in her school. She knows what to do because her mother has this conversation with her.
Absolutely.
Your
Absolutely.
son, I promise you, is going to come to you again. He's going to be happy that mom had this conversation because not only are you instilling trust, you're opening up that opportunity or that safe space for him to come back. Congratulations. How many other parents are doing that?
I don't know, but I hope that anything I can say will help to forge that type of conversation between kids and parents because we're getting a lot wrong, and I know I am too. But all of the things that make us strive for perfection, that's part of this generational trauma that we're passing down, and I'm seeing it disguised as a lot of other things, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's not it. That's
Okay.
not going to get you
What
anywhere.
can we do? Let's get on the drawing board because we've
What
talked.
can we do?
What can we do?
Well,
I'm
you
telling
have an in to spaces that I haven't found a way in yet. I want to be
I'm
in
taking you with me.
schools. I want to be in doctors' offices because that's another thing. I know I told you, but I'm on my soapbox. medical professionals have to be more trauma informed. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of the way I left feeling, and then you just reconfirm all of my mistrust that I was raised with, and I don't trust you, and you made me feel the same way everybody else did. So I want to be in those offices. I want to do school stuff. I mean, I want to be anywhere I can get in. I'm willing to mobilize with
I'm telling
whatever.
you, the community is what I want you, because I'm telling you, a young lady was just on a podcast. I want to say, First Dibs, um, AJ. She just talked about how the public health system failed her and talked about
Mhm.
it to a T. I think she was 2 episodes ago.
Okay.
See, the more and more we get people like us to connect, that's
Mhm.
when we start saying, oh, okay, we got more. We operate as a team. We
That's
function.
right.
I have been,
Coalition.
it's a mission. This is, somebody today told me, I call it a mission. My producer calls it a ministry. I'm all for it. Somebody today told me it was a passion project. However, it is. I'm
Mhm.
never going to stop having this conversation because I've seen how much it has changed people's lives, including mine.
I call it purpose.
Yep. And
It's
that's
my
exactly what
purpose.
it is. It pours. And I'm going to continue to pour into as many people as possible. I
Mhm.
love you because you understand the assignment and you are joining us, because once you see the community, like in a few minutes, let's be clear, at 7 o'clock on X is Leah. She is a child trauma expert. She has this 5-step program. People in our podcast have done this with her, and they are out here in this community. Shout out to Jorge. Shout out to the people that are actually taking advantage of the space and doing something about it. So once you get
Yeah.
in, you'll see that connection is going to happen. It's going to happen naturally because we're tired. We're
Yeah.
you adding, if you don't know that ACEs has been connected to PTSD, or ACEs has been connected to nervous system, or ACEs has been connected to so many other, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. I actually was going through research with a client earlier this week and showing her my study because she wanted to know what her score was.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, I get it. But when I broke it down to her, she was like, wow, of all the people that took your quiz, 52 of 52% of the people have dealt with separation and
Mhm.
or divorce. That's household dysfunction.
Yep.
So 1 in 3 have the ACEs score.
Yep.
Let's not act like
It's
the
always not my backyard, right? Like it's always this is what trauma looks like, and they've got this picture of whatever. Hey, I get it. I know how our brains are programmed to receive information. I get it. But the thing is your neighbor has trauma that they need to deal with, and so do you. Like it's the I don't mind the people who come in with a strong like protective feeling over their parents when they're talking to me in therapy. I'm like, oh god. But I also prefer it because then I don't have to teach them empathy or compassion and love for their parent, right? Because that's my whole thing is like we're all human. And listen, I would never try to force any of that type of thinking on someone who wasn't in that space. But what I'm saying is so much of what I'm trying to get people to see is we're just a mirror of ourselves here. So
Mhm.
like if this is an issue you're having, there's a reason for it. And the people around you, you brought them to you because they were very reminiscent of the conflict that you're used to having.
Mhm.
So that's what your subconscious does. There's some accountability there, but I just don't know why it's so hard for people to understand like, hmm, if I was left to deal with my feelings, no matter how big the scenario was, on my own, pretty much told to rub some dirt on it and walk it off, that is emotional neglect.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
come
It
on.
is.
But that's the reason why you're here. This is someone else, you guys, that is aware of ACEs. You heard the key terms. She said some relatable terms, you guys. This is someone else's podcast that you can spread the wealth, have the conversation, interact, network, communicate. This is what we need. I'm heavy on community at this point, if you can't
Me
tell.
too. Me
So
too.
if
Well, I've
you
been alone a long time. I'm ready. I'm ready to be
yeah.
with people.
And this is what we need. This is also what's going to help us grow. So, what I would like for you to do is tell everybody where they can find you. I want people to come to you because I trust the community that we have been in. They're very supportive. It just happened, and I thank the Lord for it. But these are people that I have found from my podcast. Like you said, you started your podcast and it was just you pouring, but now people are coming to you, and so we need to get our communities to say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We're heading out into our communities. We are going to these schools. Not only the schools, we're going into shout out to Crow Hill Project. She is in I mean, when I mean on the East Coast doing her thing, it's people out here. You just need to see who they are. They are out here. Shout out to Sister Fran, who's in Maryland doing her thing. Shout out, I talked about Leah already. Let's shout out Lisa, who is in Canada doing her thing, or Starling's community doing, like, it's people, trust me, that come and they're having this conversation. Shout out to Dr. Nadine Burkharris, who I will always shout out because she was the one that opened up the eyes to me with that TED talk she did. I'm not going to say for some odd reason she's back, but she's back. And she is posting every day different resources, free resources, information that's out there. The stuff from the CDC is free. My resources are free. But now, once I join in this community, people are saying, nope, I want to have a book club. Nope. Dr. Williams, can we talk about let's talk about and dive into chapter 1. I sure will, but I'm not going to do that on Instagram where people are talking about unnecessary things when our primary focus is getting in our community and getting them to be aware of something that we can control, which is understanding ACEs. I can't do it.
Mhm.
Let them know who you are.
So I have the easiest way to find me probably is on Instagram. I think my username is just Melissa.Hepner. And I have a website, empowered with melisahepner.org, but my first name is spelled kind of weird. It's Malisa. That will always give like the last episode aired for the podcast. I'm actually about to go through like a complete revamp. I finally have a better vision for, cohesion. And so I'm probably going to like rebrand some things and whatever, especially now that the podcast has taken on a life of its own. But find me on Instagram because there's a lot of links there. At least there should be, I don't know, but at least DM there. And then if you actually want like a link to the podcast or whatever, I'm on Spotify. I'm on all the major platforms. There's the logo is a little cartoon of two people in like a little podcast booth. I was like, listen, when I started my podcast, I said, perfect is the enemy of good. I have zero clue what I'm doing, but I have a message and I'm going to get it out there. And I thought, my name's hilarious. Okay, great. And then I said, AI, this is what I want for a picture. And then that's it. And so I was just telling my husband, like, I think we need to go through a little bit of a rebrand. I think there's some things that, I feel like I have a very succinct. I was not showing up 100% authentic in the beginning. I was afraid to offend people and whatever. And I'm just really not afraid. Like, you're either for me or you're not. And if you're not, I mean, I send you on your way in peace and love, dude. Like, that's okay. I am not for everyone. And I am
I'm not
fully
either.
aware of that. Yeah.
I'm
And I'm
not
okay
either.
with that. Yeah.
I've had someone on the podcast that I actually truly supported, and she was like, "Hey, I got another book coming out." And I'm like, "Okay," because I'm an author. Hey, why not? And she was like, "So
Yeah.
you gonna do this or what?" And I'm like, "Wait, hold on. Well, I'm only doing this for the likes." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I actually thought you were interested in aces. You probably don't even know about
Yeah.
aces at all. So you really got to understand everybody is not for you.
Right.
Everybody is not going to be here to serve the right purpose, but
Hmm.
you're running to your people. And I'm happy for you running to your people. I'm glad that we met because
Me
that's
too.
another person that is an educator that has been in the educational space that's tired of the lack of social emotional learning and lack of administrative support for not just teachers, but for students as well. Okay.
Hmm.
Because we need to come out here. And like I said, for me, it was trust. I'm doing this. I wouldn't have ever thought. But people be like, oh, I'm coming. I'm doing a podcast. Oh, I saw on episode 25. I'm like, yeah, watch it for real. Or
I know, right? I know. It's so cool whenever people send you feedback about it. I'm like, And I even got feedback off the talk I did today, and I was like, man, that feels good. Like,
Empowering is it? So that's why I think it's going to work, because the more and more we get in there, it's like I said, I would have never thought that I would teach. I'm teaching this weekend at the Museum of Contemporary Art. Okay. Like, let's be clear. People want to have the conversation.
they
You gotta
do.
find the
They don't
right.
know how to start it.
They just don't. And you started with your podcast, and so did I. And here we are. Congratulations.
Thank you. You too.
I would encourage you to continue to talk about ACEs, because I think once you connect it to everything, there's nothing wrong with being emotionally unavailable. I think it's a great eye-catching. That was what I saw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
At that
Definitely
time,
not changing the name at all. Definitely
yeah,
never change. I
I
love
was
my name.
yeah, I say let's do this, but let's have what makes us emotionally unavailable and start getting to the bottom, because the guests that you've had, and you know it because I've given you feedback, I like it. I do.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't get a chance to do all the up episodes. I'll only
Yeah, yeah.
78, 980. I think you're 83 now. And by the time this premieres, you'll probably be at 90, 95. Who knows? But you have to
Yeah.
keep going. And I
Yeah.
would love for you to join our community. So join us. I will tell you, I am everywhere. When I mean everywhere, I'm even though I went back to TikTok the other day. Why not? You know what I mean? Because I have a
No, you're so funny because I've been working up the nerve all day to get the energy to create a TikTok because I've been feeling this calling, like, because my gifts are in speaking, right? So
right.
uh I don't know that I've ever fully, like, I've said things I was passionate about, but I didn't speak with conviction. And I just keep feeling this pull to make a video that, like, I'm really passionate about. But then
Yeah.
it's like, God, I'm so tired right now. So I'm going to. So
But
it's funny that you brought it
I'm
up.
going to be impartial. Everybody keeps pushing me for LinkedIn, and I like LinkedIn. Let's be clear. I do. I think it's very professional. I'm on here. I don't have a problem with it. Um, I'm back on there too. But it's something about the different spaces. You'll find your community. And
Like
that's the reason why
threads.
me creating the community and saying,
Hmm.
hey, from this community, join me. From this community, join me.
Yeah.
From this community, join me, because I found powerful people on each different type of community where I feel
Hmm.
comfortable to do my own. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
excited about, because I think that's what's going to help us go out in the community for real, in the different spaces that we're in, and have
Hmm.
that discussion. When someone is saying, hey, Dr. Torie, I think I am going to go to Maryland, instead of saying, well, let me get I actually know someone that would be a great speaker, or someone
Uh-huh.
that can actually do this, and refer that person so that person can go out and advocate for ACEs. Because for me, that's the point. That's the purpose. That's the power in getting out in the community and having a conversation. So join
Hmm.
us, because that's what we're doing. You ready?
I'm sign me up.
Let's go. Well, you guys, you'll see me and Malisa again
Oh, you
for
sure will. You will.
sure.
You will.
I'm telling you guys now, I might surprise you and she may come back to me. We might go on Instagram. We might go on TikTok. We might go somewhere else. But trust and believe me, we're going to continue to have this conversation, because it's time to talk about adverse childhood experience. So I want to thank you guys. Melissa, I definitely want to thank you for another wonderful
Thank
episode.
you.
But I'll tell you now, this isn't the end. You
No.
will see us very soon. You can find us everywhere. You can find me everywhere again. Y'all know I'm on TikTok,
I'm
Instagram.
on all of them. I mean, I don't,
And
I
you'll
don't,
find
I don't
us.
check into a few of them, but you'll see which ones I'm actually pretty active on.
Exactly. Well, thank you again. And thank you for another great episode of Be Victorious. I would, and before I leave and before I say goodbye, gotta shout out my dope shirt. Thank you to my sister,
I
Kelly
love it.
Creative Collection. If you're interested in the discount, I got it. Be Victorious. I'll give you the information. Thank you guys so much for another episode. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye, you guys.